Hello and welcome to the Kyle Phoenix Reviews. Of course, I have the Kyle Phoenix Show, which is televised throughout New York as well as broadcast all over the world when we digitize it. And we have the Kyle Phoenix website. We have our title bar right here at the bottom. So if you want to look it up or send me an email about some of the things that we're going to be discussing in the reviews. So I just want to jump right into the reviews. Our first review, I'm going to do classic movies, books, music, all kinds of wonderful things, even events I go to. There's some events I'm planning on going to, and I'll make them long, but I'm going to try to keep these in a very short amount of time, so I'm going to go a little bit faster. So my first review is Silence of the Lambs, one of my favorite all-time films. So let's see a clip of it.
You spook easily, Starling?
Not yet, sir.
He's past the others. The last cell. I'll be watching. You'll do fine.
A killer is on the loose.
Keeps them alive for 3 days. Then he shoots them, skins them, and dumps them.
A rookie FBI agent is on his trail.
He's got real physical strength, cautious, precise, and he's never impulsive. He'll never stop.
But in order to track him down, she'll have to match wits.
I'll help you catch him, Clary.
Believe me, you don't want Hannibal Lecter inside your head.
With the darkest of all minds.
Just do your job, but never forget what he is.
Oh, he's a monster. Pure psychopath. So rare to capture one alive.
So close to the way you're going to catch him. Do you realize that? Oh, Clarice, your problem is you need to get more fun out of life.
You told me you don't spook easily.
You call this easy, sir?
Lecter's missing an arm.
Man's a raving maniac. Who knows what he'll do?
Thank you, Clarice. Thank you.
And we're back. So, Silence of the Lambs came out in 1991, starring Jodie Foster, Anthony Hopkins, Scott Glenn, directed by Jonathan Demme. I remember seeing this in the movie theaters, but one of the things I always try to do, because the things that excite me, I try to really engage in, is reading the book by Thomas Harris. So, I've read Silence of the Lambs, I've read Red Dragon, I've read Hannibal. So, read Silence of the Lambs first. Fantastic, super. Of course, Anthony Hopkins, 11 minutes. It was about 11 or 12 minutes. He actually got an Academy Award. In the records, it's the shortest amount of time that an actor has been on screen to receive Best Actor Award. And of course, Jodie Foster got the Best Actress. So, why do Silence of the Lambs? One, it's a classic. It's a horror film. It's a thriller. It's got your police procedure in there. And really, when you start looking at some of the shows like NCIS, Criminal Minds, it kind of got that whole ball rolling 20 years ago of the behavioral unit of the FBI looking into the minds of serial killers. We'd, of course, had serial killers in the world before that, but it hadn't been kind of classified in such an elegant, incredible way where the killer was so engaging. So let's talk about Jonathan Demme's direction. It moves. Jodie Foster looks fresh-faced. She looks like a newbie. She looks very innocent, earnest, young. He calls Anthony Hopkins, Hannibal calls Clarice a little cowpone that, wearing her cheap shoes. So we really engage in this because we've all had the experience of being the new person somewhere, especially the new person at a job, especially trying to do something important. Scott Glenn as her superior he has all of this faith in her, and it turns out he's actually playing a ruse against Hannibal, trying to get some information out of him. So in a way, Jodie Foster, as she looks to us, jail bait, is a form of bait to Hannibal Lecter that Scott Glenn has tossed to her, Jack Starling has tossed to her. So This is why it's such an engaging movie. Then, of course, Jonathan Demme slowly builds the tension because we're really not sure quite what's going on. Is Hannibal just screwing with her? Is she misinterpreting things? Does anybody truly understand who this killer is? And she starts noticing some things. Her humanity as an officer, her investigative skills, her forensic skills, even the fact that she stands up to these men. So we could look at this not only because there's about a time frame around here, around 10 years, where some really strong feminist films came out, and Jodie Foster as a woman in charge, a woman in control. Not only is she leading the picture, but she's also the head of the whole protagonist movement that's occurring in the movie, and what that means for her to be the character that is leading this as a woman who's oftentimes puts different people in their place in a very polite kind of, I would say meek, but in a kind of reserved way, in a genteel way. But she says, no, I may look like this on the outside, but I'm actually steel on the inside. I'm just untested steel. That's the only thing. So she even tells her superior, hey, don't play games with me. Don't make me the bait and stuff. Don't talk to me in a certain way in front of the other police officers, because then they will judge what I'm truly capable of. She tells Hannibal, she calls him out a couple of times. She says, you know something? What you just did right there, that's kind of beneath you. I expected more of you now that I'm getting to know who you are. So we can even see there's a little dynamics, there's a triangulation, there's a dark kind of romance going on between her boss, and Hannibal. Even Hannibal kind of keys into it. He's like, do you think he likes you? What do you think he likes about you? What have you thought about? And then he starts playing on her father stuff, because Hannibal is saying, hey, if you want to get into my head of my knowledge of what a serial killer could be, and in fact I know who this serial killer is, quid pro quo, you have to give me something of you, because the delicacy, what I'm interested in as a psychiatrist gone mad, is the thoughts of others. So that's the beautiful, the wonderful thing about this, is that it's both a physically thrilling film, it has elements of horror to it, and at the same time it's a psychological thriller. Because what I enjoy about movies, what I enjoy about good movies, and most of the movies that I find to be really, really good, is that, one, I forget that they're famous, gotta forget they're famous, and two, most importantly, smart people. That I believe that those characters exist in this little fantasy bubble that we're creating, but they're intelligent people. So, Kyle Phoenix, Silence of the Lambs. I recommend you can go to our website, KylePhoenixShow.com, and I guarantee in there's actually some great discounts for all of the films and books and stuff that we're going to be talking about, and a whole library of stuff, because that's why I wanted to kind of pull this all together, to make sure that you, the viewer, who might want a copy of this, might find this interesting and intriguing, will be able to get it at a good price. Thank you so much. Hello, and as always, I'm your host, Kyle Phoenix, and you're on my website, you're on my television show, and we're being broadcast, and you see that we have our website information below, KylePhoenixSite.com. You can contact me at KylePhoenixShow@AOL.com. We're on Metacafe, we're on Sleepo, we're on High Five. But let's get right into our review. This is one of my all-time favorites. I discovered this back in 2001. I'd taken off some time from work, and I was tooling around on Amazon, on eBay, and I found this, The Kingdom. So what is this? It's from Denmark, Lars von Trier, one of my favorite directors. I'd just seen a couple of his films, and I said, really like this. It was a few dollars. I actually ordered it in VHS tape. So it arrives. It's approximately 8 hours. I stayed up all night watching the 8 hours. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you about The Kingdom Part 1. This is actually the DVD cover. That what initially happens is that it starts out slow, and they're speaking in Danish and everything, and you're like, hey, where's this going? And it builds, and it builds, and it builds. And there's first one little odd thing, and then there's two odd things, and then there's three, and then you're in the second episode, and it builds, and it builds, and it builds. I'm just going to show you a portion of it and some of the stars of it. And then we'll talk about the kingdom and then the kingdom part 2, which is even just more zany and crazy.
Grunden under Rigshospitalet er gammel mose. Her lå blegedammene engang. Her gik blegemændene og fugtede deres store lærreder i det lave vand for at lægge til blegning. Fordampningen indhyllede stedet i en permanent tåge. Senere byggedes Rigshospitalet her, og blegemændene blev skiftet ud med læger og forskere og landets bedste hjerner og mest fuldendte teknologi. Og som kronen på værket kaldte man stedet for riget. Nu skulle livet defineres, og uvidenhed og overtro aldrig mere kunne ryste videnskaben. Måske er det blevet for meget med hovmodet og den konsekvente fornægtelse af det åndelige, for det er som om kulden og fugten er vendt tilbage. Små tegn på træthed er begyndt at vise sig i de ellers så solide og moderne bygninger. Ingen levende ved det endnu, men porten til riget er begyndt at åbne sig på ny.
So, we're back. Yes, the kingdom. Laws were on trial. Lower the volume a little. Okay, so, set in Denmark. It's about the early 90s. This huge hospital. ER, so you've got the whole staff. You've got about a dozen people in the hospital that the show is focusing on. Lars von Trier. So it starts out kind of normal. So you see the camera work is a little shaky. It's a little playing with everything. What's the beautiful thing about foreign films and foreign, it's actually first broadcast as a television series in Denmark, is that you don't recognize any of the people. There's very rarely somebody that we would know here in America in a lot of these productions. So for me, that adds a fresh value to it. What comes from the kingdom is that, it's feeling a little ER-ish, it's feeling a little Trapper John. You've got the rebel doctor, you've got the doctor he's attracted to, you've got the nurses, you've got the young interns, you've got the bumbling head of the hospital, and then there's a spiritualist, a psychic, who has her orderly, so she's a hypochondriac and she's constantly in the hospital. Then we have played by Ernst Hugo, Dr. Helmer, a racist or a nationalist actually, who comes into the hospital as the head of the department, and he has very tight rules, and he's also very ambitious in a darkly ambitious kind of way. And then slowly stuff starts happening. So in the basement, out of nowhere, we have two mentally handicapped young people, teenagers, who obviously have some form of Down syndrome or mental retardation, and yet they're discussing the stuff that is happening above them that they would have no knowledge of, working in the basement, washing dishes, and then they start discussing the future of the characters. And you're like, whoa, wait a second. So, number one, Lars, is von Trier's pulling that what we would normally associate with retardation, they're doing menial work, basic work, and yet on some level they are more connected to what's going on in the kingdom than the people in the kingdom. Then there's an ambulance that's constantly racing through the driveway, through the highway, and yet never shows up. It's a ghost ambulance. And you're like, what, wait. So now people start noticing stuff happens. Then a doctor, she gets pregnant. She discovers she's pregnant one day. She says, it happened on vacation. She was with somebody, and it was a quick thing, and, that affair is over, and now I can be interested in you, this new doctor. And, their relationship is starting to go. And then, she's a little pregnant. And then she's a little bit more pregnant. And she's a little bit more pregnant next week. And then she's twice as pregnant a few days later. And then she's 3 times as pregnant, and she's coming to full term in such a short period of time. And you're like, okay, something's going on here. Something's really, really going on here. Then there's a ghost running around, this little girl. This is what got Stephen King interested in redoing this here in America. So it was redone in America, it was broadcast. I didn't even watch it, so I can't give you an accurate view of that. I can say, Stephen King, I've read some of his stuff, seen some of his movies and stuff. What I can say is that watching The Kingdom by Lars von Trier, who wrote it, directed it, produced it, completely crafted this, it has an element of not only suspense, not only horror, but it's laugh out loud funny. Once you get into the subtitles of the Danish and realize how ludicrous all of this is, and yet at the same time, when Udo Kier appears, how sinister, maybe even evil and macabre this all is. The Kingdom, another great recommendation. As always, you can check out the site, KylePhoenixSite.com, and you'll see some great downloading opportunities, as well as I found some great places to get discounts on all of these films. Check out KylePhoenixSite.com. And I'm always remembering, KylePhoenixShow at AOL.com if you want to email any questions or any suggestions for things for me to review. Thanks so much and have a good day. Welcome back. As always, I am your host, Kyle Phoenix, KylePhoenixShow at AOL.com, KylePhoenixSite.com, where you can find all of these great movies and books and everything that I am reviewing at wonderful, wonderful discounts. Okay, another favorite, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf by Edward Albee. Edward Albee is in my top 3 favorite playwrights of all time. This is so good. I have the play. I have the movie, obviously. I read it. I love it. The crispness of the dialogue, the fact that everybody is operating at top form, Sandy Dennis, George Siegel, Richard Burton, Elizabeth Taylor, everybody gets not just a scene to be seen in it, but everybody gets a moment to shine to who their character really is, as well as they're all woven in by Mike Nichols, who directed, so that you really get to see 4 people who are, in a way, trapped together. The small college campus that Richard Burton and George Siegel teach at has brought them together into this faculty party. And George Siegel's wife is Sandy Dennis, and Richard Burton's wife is Elizabeth Taylor. And this is, of course, happening during the height of the Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton marriage and affairs, 2 marriages. And so she invites this new couple, who's essentially the couple that she is now with Richard Burton. She invites them back to their house after a faculty party. So I've worked at colleges and lived on campus and been to faculty affairs and stuff like this. So it resonates in a whole wild, wild way. Okay, she invites them back. But we get about 20 minutes with Martha and her husband, played by Richard Burton, and the game that they start playing. And you realize that George Siegel and Sandy Dennis have no concept of what they're walking into. Martha is the daughter of the president of the school, so she's kind of the princess of this small campus. She thought she was going to marry the prince or the heir apparent in her husband, but nothing has manifested from this. So there's a bitterness, a bitter strain. So there's love, they've been together for a while, and there's a bitter strain of, hey, I thought you were gonna be my prince so that I could become the queen and you could become the king, but you're not. And here come the guests knocking at the door. So look at a clip of it, and I'll come right back to it.
Who's afraid of Virginia Woolf? Virginia Woolf, Virginia Woolf. Who's afraid of Virginia?
It's easy to talk about Warner Brothers' new motion picture, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? It's hard to tell about it. Easy to talk about. All you have to say is Elizabeth Taylor, Richard Burton.
Who's afraid of Virginia?
He's the associate professor of history. She's his wife. The essence of Ivy League charm to students and friends who don't know them well. George Siegel, Sandy Dennis are the newcomers led by their charming host and hostess to the hell that hides behind those ivy-clad university walls.
Who's afraid of Virginia Woolf? Early in the morning. Who's afraid of Virginia Woolf? Virginia Woolf, Virginia Woolf. Who's afraid of Virginia Woolf?
Edward Albee wrote the play, the most acclaimed work by this controversial author. Ernest Lehman wrote the screenplay. He did the same for West Side Story and Sound of Music. Mike Nichols directs. His unbroken series of theatrical triumphs have given him a position without peer or rival. All you have to say is Elizabeth Taylor, Richard Burton, George Siegel, Sandy Dennis, Edward Albee's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. After that, all you can say is incredible.
So, back. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Elizabeth Taylor, at the height of her capacity to channel, she gained weight for this role. She gained about 20, 30 pounds, so she's a little doughy. She's a little soft because she's an alcoholic. She's playing an alcoholic in this film. She's playing someone who's kind of been pampered, who kind of gave into her first throw of calculated love, and at the same time found herself passionately in love with her husband, who's something else. What has he done? He weaves this story of somebody who maybe accidentally killed his parents. He weaves the story of how I became I thought I was marrying the daughter of the president so that my path was set, but I made one calculated error. I told the truth about my past. And by telling the truth about my past, my father-in-law has now judged me as fractured, as impossible, as insane. And George Siegel and Sandy Dennis come into this, and they are a reflection of the hope, of the possibility. Even the fact that Sandy Dennis, in the midst of this, she admits, you know something? She's had miscarriages. Or was it a hysterical pregnancy? Or was it both? That everybody's reality is a little shifty because everybody is constantly drinking in this night. This takes place in about the course of maybe about 8 hours, 10 hours in a night's time, from when they first go to the cocktail party to when we actually meet the couple coming home, and then George Segal and Sandy Dennis joining them. So what makes this so daring is the language. What makes this so daring and incredible, particularly for the time when it was done in the 60s, is the fact of the mature issues that are being just thrown about, and more importantly, the elegant viciousness that occurs in this film. This is people who've been married, who've been in love, and the blush is off the rose. And in fact, I'm not quite sure that I'm really, really committed to the concept of forever, to the concept of marriage, and definitely to you. And I'm kind of pissed about that. And so I'm going to go at you and go at each other. They do. It's beautifully written. It is beautiful. This is Edward Albee. One of the reasons why he's one of my favorite playwrights is because I actually did this. I looked at the play along with watching the film to see, the little minor changes back and forth, but that crackerjack language. So if, I don't know, maybe you're interested in acting, maybe you're just interested in seeing what a good movie is, where you're just seeing pure acting, because you forget after a while. I'm like, Elizabeth Taylor, I'm watching Elizabeth Taylor, and then I forget I'm watching Martha. I'm watching this insane woman, Martha, who you can't take your eyes away from, where even having watched it several times, knowing the story and everything, I become so engrossed that there's always a new turn, there's a new crevice, there's a new cavern, there's a new something happening in the film, even in their acting. Hey, I didn't see that. I didn't remember this portion. Did that happen before? Just watching four people go at each other. There are two supporting characters. They're just basically in a bar as kind of filler, but their filler even has a lot of the owner of a bar and his wife, where when they intrude upon these four, you realize how insane these four have become with each other in such a short period of time. And therefore, when we kind of, as the interlopers through the bar owner and the waitress, come through, you realize, something? We've been pulled into their insane bubble. And the bar owner and his wife, they're looking at the four of them and they're like, there's something wrong with you. And we realize, something? We've actually normalized their insanity. And that's the height of art, where you are drawn into it, where you believe it as reality, where in a level you're even willing to defend it as the reality until another portion of the art says, no, look, I drew you into it. Beautiful. Masterpiece. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Enjoy. As always, you can check it out on the KylePhoenixSite.com. There are some great discounts and things where you can download this stuff, where you can purchase this stuff, where you can find great places to actually get this, plus tons and tons of other videos and books and music. So this is a wonderful opportunity for you to take advantage of some real quality material out there. Thank you and have a good day. Welcome to the Kyle Phoenix Show, Kyle Phoenix Reviews. So what we're actually doing is we're reviewing movies and videos and books and a lot of great stuff. And I want to keep mixing it up because as a teacher, I use a lot of this stuff with young people, with teachers. I teach all kinds of people. I teach all kinds of things. I teach adult learning. I teach teachers, professional developments and all that kind of stuff. So I have a lot of great material and I've been trying to figure out how to not only incorporate it into the show, but more importantly, kind of share it with you. So you can check out all of this material, and if you're looking for a copy for yourself, there's a multitude of ways that I've listed on the website, KylePhoenixSite.com, where you can get it.